Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
I can't hear the production staff.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning. Welcome to a Thursday edition of the program, Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. It's Thursday. That means we'll be joined by Brent Beird, a college football analyst, in just a second. Second portion of today's program, we'll crank back up the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup, see what's going on in week 4 of high school football around the area. Tonight, got a little NFL action, good one. Chiefs and the Chargers. If you have Amazon Prime or whatever it's called, good luck. I don't, so I guess I'll have to watch it on my phone or follow it on my phone. In the meantime, let's talk some college football. Our college football analyst, Brent Beird. You can follow him on Twitter at Brent Beird. Good morning, Brent. How are you, my man?
Shane, doing well. Good to be on with you. And now we may find out more about this as the day goes on, but from what I can tell, there are no college games scheduled tonight. As far as television is concerned, hopefully we'll find out later that there may be a more of what we say a minor game that will be on, but way too often college surrenders Thursday night. The NFL they need to stop that, have their own games on, and give the viewer something else to watch. But we will see where that goes. But it's good to be back on with you, Shane, and boy, another big week of SEC football on the horizon.
Yeah, let's recap what happened last week around the country. Obviously, a bunch of huge upsets. Nebraska loses to Clay Helton, who was fired last year by USC. The Eagles from Georgia Southern roll in there and put it on them, and then he gets fired. Your thoughts on that? They could have saved some money, but who do you think they go after, Brent?
Well, that's a good question. You knew that was coming at some point. Now, if they had waited till October 1, they would have saved $7.5 million. But it's obvious they could go no further. Now, Frost will get $15 million, which is not a bad going away present by any means. Big win for Clay Helton, 45-42. And Helton's really done a nice job with them. I mean, the names you hear are pretty typical. Matt Campbell of Iowa State. Mark Stoops' name comes up. Look, with the job he's done in Kentucky right now, I think he'll stay where he is. Mm-hmm. Dave Aranda at Baylor, who I think is a tremendous coach and will eventually be in the SEC. Bill Bryan, the Alabama coordinator. There were some Alabama fans wish he was at Nebraska last week, but they did rally in the fourth quarter. Lance Leopold at Kansas has done a tremendous job. So, but look, that I know the recruiting limitations in the state of Nebraska, but that is still a good job in a lot of ways. So that will be interesting to see where they go, and they've got plenty of time now to work on it.
They do, and they get the Oklahoma Sooners rolling into town. So
yeah,
it ain't going to be easy. Another big game around the country, and BYU, who I think is quietly almost in the top 10, beat a really good Baylor team in overtime. They traveled to Oregon, who is ranked, This is kind of a game that's kind of flown under the radar.
Yeah, it really has. No question about that. BYU get a couple of receivers back. Puka Nalka, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, Gunnar Romney, with Jaron Hall. That could be, and that's pretty good offense all the way around. So yes, it is. And what frankly, this weekend, BYU's 12, Oregon's 25. One of the few games we've got between two ranked teams.
Yes, indeed. I'm just looking at your notes here, kind of before we jump into the conference play. Obviously, App State going to College Station, and we'll talk about the Aggies a little bit later. But what a win for their program. I was on a show with Coach Spurrier during the week that we do every Tuesday, and we weren't 100% sure, but he felt pretty confident that like the App State coach only makes about $500,000, maybe a little bit
correct.
more.
That's correct.
Think about all the A&M players that are making like a couple of $1 million.
Yeah.
And they went in there and got them a win.
Yeah, the discrepancy is just unbelievable, isn't it? Now, as a matter of fact, game day for ESPN was going to be at Miami A&M, but now it's going to be at the Appalachian State game. And look, Appalachian State could be undefeated. I mean, they nearly beat North Carolina, then they beat A&M. I mean, these programs are really good programs. The problem App State's going to have now is getting teams to schedule them.
Mm-hmm.
But you have a few upsets like that, and that's what happens. But Coach Spurrier's right. Yes, the pay scale between the App State coach and Jimbo is just off the chart. So, but a humongous win for them.
Yes, indeed. Another team that's struggling right now. They're 0-3 under their new coach, the Notre Dame Irish. What's going on up there, Brent?
Well, they just haven't had enough time to put their program in, A, and then B. Shane, frankly, this was one of those smooth transition hires that the players wanted, and that's basically what they've got, and they're paying the price for that now. Look, Freeman at some point will probably be a pretty good coach. He's a good recruiter. It just really has not come together at this point either. Now I give Marshall a lot of credit for that win. That was huge for them. Charles Huff was a very good assistant coach. He was at Bama with Saban for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And has really done a nice job now at Marshall. So keep your eye on that one. But now some other Notre Dame coaches, Brian Kelly started 1-3, Bob Davie 1-4, Lou Holtz was 1-4, and Jerry Faust was 1-2. So Notre Dame's had some injuries, but still the bottom line is they shouldn't be losing to Marshall. They've had turnover now at quarterback. Tyler Buchner, AC sprain, will have surgery. He's going to miss 4 months. Drew Pine is going to get the start against Cal. So a very difficult beginning so far for Notre Dame.
Cliff says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Metal Law, look at how much more Bimbo makes than the App State coach, and he got rolled by him. Not only just a coach, all the A&M players make more than their coach.
Yeah, that's a great point. It is.
How about the Blue Bloods in basketball? Maybe they're not just a basketball school now. Maybe they're football school. They're 15-0 right now.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it, Shane? This is a great trivia question right now. Kansas, Kentucky, Syracuse, North Carolina, by the hair of their chinny chin, Gene Chiswick's their D coordinator, and they're giving up a lot of points, but they're still undefeated. UCLA, Duke, and Indiana are all 15-0 when you put them together. That's a wonderful fact right now. So very, very unusual. It won't last much longer, but for right now, that's fun to see.
No doubt. Are you in the market to buy or sell a home? Doreen Weeby, a realtor with Caldwell Banker, M.M. Parish, will provide you with fast, friendly, reliable service. Give her a call at 352-562-8255. 1411 to help your dreams come true. Speaking with Brent Beird on the Titan MR Hotline. Question here, Brent, brought to you by Meldon Law. Brent, this is from John. What do you make of the Georgia-Oklahoma series being postponed? Do you expect the same for Florida-Texas series?
This has happened yesterday. The SEC has directed, at least for now, Georgia and Tennessee not to play their home and home against Oklahoma. Georgia had them scheduled next year, Oklahoma that is, and in 31. So now we're not quite sure what this means yet. A lot of people have thought that this might mean that OU and Texas leaving early could happen. Now, keep this in mind. The SEC last year, Shane, you remember this? That they actually came out with their schedule. I believe this was in September for the next year, which is obviously this year. So it's obvious that they're working on not only the 23 schedule, but they're probably working beyond. Now, how much of that they want to tell us, we're not real sure. Now, it would be great if Oklahoma and Texas could get in the league earlier. Now, right now, we think they're going to get in 2025. Now, the question is, are they going to get in before then? That's what we're waiting on. Now, the other issue here is, I give Matt Hayes credit for this. Matt said that the SEC isn't agreeing to a new playoff without Texas and OU in the SEC. He goes on to say, if you're reading tea leaves, new playoff could be as soon as 2023. Now, that would be wonderful if that happened, but there are still a lot of moving pieces to deal with in order for that to happen. Now, another thing that happened yesterday is, I give Brian Fisher credit for this, ESPN, their chairman, actually came out and said, we've been clear to anyone who is interested that we're very willing to be flexible here and to be creative in terms of this expansion. Now, what that means is that up until 25, 26, ESPN's got the rights to the playoffs. Now, what they're saying here is, in order for expansion to happen, we're going to be really cooperative and let some other people be involved with this. Basically, what that means is ESPN knows how much money would be involved with the playoff, so they would probably lose some of their accessibility in some of their games in order to make more money. That's kind of what that reads to me. But there are a lot of moving pieces here that we don't quite know where they're going as of yet. But it was very interesting that the SEC teams who are playing Texas and OU over the next year or so, what that's going to mean, and we don't know all that right now, but it's pretty obvious that they're dropping these games as a non-conference games in order to pick them up as a conference game later. And I'm sorry if that's confusing, but that's kind of where we are.
Yeah. Also, the NCAA, I think it came out yesterday, kids that entered the portal after this August, they had to pull their name back out. Yeah, that's correct. Yes. Now, where this is going to go is basically we have two windows. Again, they just had this legislation in August. So the windows, again, are, this means that the first window is a day after championship selections are made, meaning December the 5th, and that goes for 45 days. Now, the second will be from May 1 to May 15. So what they're saying is, if you've entered the portal, the schools have got to withdraw their names from the portal,
because we're going through these strict windows. Now, this appears to be confusing at this point, but what they're trying to do is to simplify this. Hopefully this will work, and they're going to give this a whirl here. So we basically got these two windows, Shane. And look, for what you and I do on a daily basis, kind of simplifies it for us because we don't have all that movement basically anytime they want to do it.
Very true. Let's go around the league. Alabama, obviously, we're going to talk about them squeaking by the Texas Longhorn. They host Louisiana Monroe and Terry Bowden and his crew. Before we jump into the Tide, Andy had a question on Facebook Live brought to you by Mental Law. He says, Brent, what was your take on that safety during the Texas-Bama game that was not called? How was that not grounding in the end zone?
Well, I thought it was too, frankly. Now, I've also been sent frame by frame of Bryce Young when he was in the end zone that he was falling on an opposing player or a player, and he was not on the ground. So a lot of people thought the officials really botched that. It was a very confusing mess in a lot of ways, kind of symbolic of the way that game was going at that point. So I've seen a lot of different things with that, and to be honest with you, I'm still not sure there's a great explanation as to what happened then and why it was called that way.
Yeah. Obviously, Alabama didn't play well. Got to give Texas a lot of credit in that game.
Yes.
The one thing that stood out to me, though, Brent, I mean, obviously we know about the penalties. Alabama teams usually don't. People always question it if Alabama holds on offense. I get all that, and it's never called. But they had a bunch of silly penalties. You know,
yes.
Will Anderson hitting a guy late, jumping off sides multiple times. And they'll address that. But the biggest thing that jumped out to me, because I'm an offensive guy, was the lack of, I don't want to say speed, because you know these dudes that are wearing the crimson helmet can run. Maybe it was just their receiving core. Maybe we just haven't heard of these guys, and they have a long ways to go.
Well, that's an astute observation because that's primarily what happened. The wide receivers could not get separation. That's the problem, and Shane can kind of explain that better than anybody. But the previous guys that Bama have had, and they're real stars, Amari Cooper, Julio Jones, guys like that, always were able to separate from the defense. That made a huge difference. And this group's now just learning how to do that. Now, the other thing that's about to happen for them, which will be helpful, is they've got three other wide receivers, JoJo Earl, who broke his foot, also returned punt, Aaron Anderson, who's one of their younger players, who is very good, and also Tyler Harrell, the kid that comes over from Louisville. All those guys have been hurt, and they've been out. They're supposed to be back by the Arkansas game in October the 1st, so that will help them. But these receivers they're very talented, but they're still learning how to play. But again, as Shane said, Texas deserves a lot of credit for what they did. Jermaine Burton had an awful game, the Georgia transfer, 2 catches for 10 yards. The Bama offensive line has still got a long way to go. As Shane said, the penalties made a lot of problems. Outside of Jace McClellan's run for the touchdown early, they really were not able to run the ball. They had basically an awful call on 4th and 1 where they put their third-string running back in, Rondell Williams, for whatever reason, and then they ran it from the shotgun instead of having Bryce Young under center. So that play basically was blown up. They didn't get the first down, or they may have been able to salt the game away there. So now Jalen Moody, their linebacker, is playing real well. Terran Arnold came in replacing Kyrie Jackson in the secondary and did real well too. So, but they've got this week against Louisiana Monroe, and next week They play Vanderbilt, and then they go to Fayetteville, which is going to be a really difficult game for them. Then they come home for A&M. Point is, they've got a couple of weeks to get a lot of these problems straightened out.
Yes, no doubt about it. We had a Facebook Live here. It's a good question. John says, we're back to the transfer portal where the kids had to pull their names out. He says, if they had to pull their name back out of the portal, are they welcome back at their previous school? I think that all depends. Who knows? Maybe or maybe not.
That's a great question. It really is. And Shane hit it with that. A lot of that's going to depend on how they were academically, and the relationship they've got with the coach. I mean, Shane, in a situation like that, there are probably a lot of situations behind the scenes in these transfers that we probably don't even know about that would affect the situation.
Yeah. The Hogs, who are playing really good football right now, they got the leading rusher in the SEC. KJ Jefferson's throwing the ball with a high efficient rate. They host old Bobby Petrino this week.
Yeah.
That should be interesting.
Yeah, it will be. It'll be interesting to see what kind of reception that he gets. Now, they'll play well in this game. The following week, next week they've got Texas A&M in Jerry's World. Then they play Alabama. So this is kind of a feel-good tune-up week for them. KJ Jefferson is playing well. Rocket Sanders at running backs, one of the better running backs in the league right now, had 156 yards last week in South Carolina. They're very physical. They're extremely well coached. Drew Sanders, the Alabama transfer, has become one of the better linebackers in the entire league. That's just amazing. Arkansas, Shane's won 11 of their last 13. So, I mean, they're really as playing as well as we've seen them in years. Jaden Hasselwood, the Oklahoma commit's playing well. Warren Thompson, the FSU transfer. Matt Landers, the Toledo transfer. Those guys are doing all very well at this point too. So we could. It's early and it's incomplete. But you can make an argument right now. Arkansas is one of the Shane? At least top 3 teams in the league.
Well, I agree with that 100%. A couple texts on the Titanamar text line from Darryl says, good morning, guys. Brent, hopefully I'll run into you at some high school games. What do you think about Jamie Chadwell from Coastal being a candidate for the Nebraska job?
I've heard a lot about that. Chadwell's done a nice job there. I mean, he's among many that we have seen as possibilities for that job. And look, I don't care what people say, that's still a good job. I mean, I know a lot of it's long-time tradition and so forth. And as Shane said, they've got a big game against Oklahoma, and their interim coach is very interested in that job too. But Matt Campbell of Iowa State, Mark Stoops, Kentucky, Dave Aranda, Bill O'Brien among the names that are mentioned for that job, Darryl. So that's going to be fascinating to see where they go.
Big game. Penn State's heading down to the plains of Auburn. Should be a good one.
No doubt. Both these teams have some real issues, but the winner that will be benefiting from this one real well. Auburn nearly won in Happy Valley last year, but this is pretty interesting. Penn State's 5-5 in their last 10 games, so they've not done much either. So the quarterback, Sean Clifford, Auburn's still struggling with their quarterback situation. TJ Finley's a little bit better. Robbie Ashford is a dual threat kid from Oregon that they've got in a good bit, so they like him. Shane, I don't know if you've seen this yet or not, but Penn State's got a freshman running back, Nick Singleton, who they really like. He got 180 yards last week, so could be an interesting battle, not just between the quarterbacks, but between Singleton and Tank Bigsby. But this is a game, again, they have 5 straight games to start the season at home, but next week they start conference play. Auburn's got Missouri, LSU, Georgia, and Ole Miss in a row after Penn State, Shane. How about that?
Yeah, that's going to be rough, no question. All right, the Gators come off a loss, didn't play great. Everything kind of went bad against Kentucky, where everything went well against Utah. Give us a breakdown what's going on with the Gators.
Yeah, and instead of what's all wrong with Florida, I give Kentucky a lot of credit. I mean, Kentucky is, and I'm curious your take on them. Mark Stoops has done a really solid job there. He's broken Bear Bryant's record of all-time wins at 61. Their linebacker crew at Kentucky probably is very undervalued. That's one of the better linebacker crews anywhere. But again, a lot of struggles for Florida. And correct me if I'm wrong on this. I understand Ventrell Miller will not play this Saturday. Hopefully he'll be back for Tennessee. Jaden Hill, the quarterback, is upgraded to questionable. I think that's important for that to happen. I wonder if Jack Miller had been healthy, and I'm not saying he would have replaced Richardson, but I wonder if they would have given him a series just to give Richardson a chance to stand on the sideline. Shane can tell us more about that as it goes along. But still, hopefully this weekend will be a feel-good game. Jeff Scott's a coach for South Florida. They are just absolutely abysmal defensively. They have allowed 70 points and 1,000 yards in total offense in the first two games. So this I believe will give Florida a chance to work on some issues, particularly in the passing game, with Richardson maybe giving a little bit more touch on the passes instead of just straight fastballs.
Yeah, we got a couple of Facebook Lives here asking about Jack Miller. I firmly believe that if he had been healthy, they would have played him Saturday. Text on the Titan Mart text line. Good morning, fellas, from Ryan. Shane, the folks questioning Napier's play calling after 2 weeks just cracks me up. Dudes were open all night and AR just missed them. It's no different than when Billy Donovan had the boys run a perfect play for a wide open three, but player X didn't knock down the shot. Coaches coach, players have to execute. Couldn't agree more. Also been hearing how now other teams had the blueprint to stop Florida, but every team Florida plays the rest of the way other than Georgia don't have the linebackers that Kentucky have. That's a dang good defense. Yeah, they're very solid. I mean, there really wasn't a blueprint. What Kentucky did defensively was very sound, saying, we're not going to let this guy beat us running the football. He's got to throw it. And he missed open guys. There's no play calling issues. People can make all the damn excuses they want, but those were simple throws that we missed, and I think Anthony will learn from that and hopefully complete those balls next time. It's that simple. So Dan's asking about Ventrell Miller. Hope they rest. He ain't playing this week. I don't know how severe his injury is. I don't even know what it actually is, but we need him back. There's no question about that heading into Tennessee because they're a pretty good team. Very good team. They're explosive. Jordan's going to be playing a SEC game at South Carolina. I think this is going to be a bloodbath.
I do too. I agree with that. Georgia's most consistent team in the league. Haven't given up a touchdown yet. How about that, Shane? Stetson Bennett's has been very good. And Georgia's won the last three games in South Carolina by an average of 22 points. I think we'll have something like that. Georgia has 9 shutouts since 2016. That's the most of anybody anywhere. Now, Spencer Rattler played okay in the loss to Arkansas, but he's got to have some help. Marshawn Lloyd needs to get it up and play better. Juju McDowell also the same. Antoine Wells is a wide receiver that is a transfer from James Madison. I think he has some potential. Here's the problem for this game. Injuries for South Carolina. Mohamed Kaba and defensive end Jordan Strachan are both out for the season, torn ACLs. So, Shane, this is a team, isn't it, in South Carolina that couldn't afford any injuries. that have already in September 2 starters are on the bench for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. An interesting game because I think Ole Miss is going to kind of go backwards this year. They're playing Georgia Tech, who just stinks. But it's kind of a interesting game, SEC versus ACC.
It is, absolutely. So the interesting thing is this game is in Atlanta also. So now Ole Miss still trying to figure out who the quarterback is between Jackson Dart and Luke Altmaier, but they've got a little bit of time in order to do that. Georgia Tech, as people may or may not know, their quarterback's Jeff Sims from Jacksonville. They beat Western Carolina, but last week Sims did not play real well. He was 8 of 17 for 100. So I think Ole Miss may actually blitz them at this point, and this could be they won 59-3. I don't think they'll beat Tech 59-3, but I think it will be a comfortable win. But the thing for Ole Miss, Tulsa, then they've got Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Auburn. So I think there's an outside chance that Ole Miss could run off a string of games before they really get into the meat of the SEC schedule.
Yeah. You mentioned Jeff Sims. He's played quarterback ever since the guy that Jeff Collins has been the head coach. Mm-hmm. If I'm him, I'm looking for somebody else. Nothing against Jeff Sims, but I've seen enough, right. Brent. He's that guy that can throw it 100 miles an hour, throw it a long ways, can make people miss, but he can't complete passes.
Good point.
So if I'm Jeff Collins, I'm going to try somebody else because you ain't winning with him. We got 2 more games before we get you out of here, Brent, and they're pretty good ones. LSU is hosting Mississippi State. I have Mississippi State as the second best team of the year in the West. That could change. I think they go in there and beat LSU.
Yeah, they're playing extremely well right now. Will Rogers has just been on fire. Now, look, they don't go downfield much, but what they do, they really do it well. He was 39 of 49 for 313 and 4 touchdowns in that game, that late game last Saturday night, as everybody remembers. But, I mean, Rogers basically leads the SEC in about every category so far, which has been very impressive. What's also impressive is how good I'm curious if you've noticed this, Shane. That's a really good defensive team, is it not? Zach Arnett, their D coordinator, is really good too. Now, some quick things about LSU that people would want to know. John Emery is back. They're running back. 2-game suspension. That's going to help them. B.J. Ojulari, who was hurt in the Florida State game, he is back. He is one of their better defensive players, so that will make it interesting. Kayshon Boutte has kind of got his act together, hopefully, better body language, and is playing better. But Shane, I'm with you. I wouldn't all be surprised if Mississippi State goes in there and wins this game.
Yeah. Quick Facebook Live. Jason says, Shane, I know in reality it should never happen with logic, but you think with all the scouts there that maybe Napier was a little more aggressive in the passing game to let Richardson show some of his arm talent. I still have confidence in Napier. I know he's the guy, just baffled with how the game went. No, so here's what happened. You look at Kentucky on tape, you don't think their secondary is very good. They lost a ton of DBs in the past few years to the National Football League. When you watch tape, you're going to try to attack the worst part of their defense, and it's in through the air. And we had dudes open, we missed them. So Billy Napier doesn't give a damn if there was 400 scouts or 0 scouts. He's going to try to win the game. So all right, I got to get your thoughts on A&M. Miami should be a heck of a game, but boy, A&M could lose this game, Brent. Then I think they got Arkansas, then they got Mississippi State, then they got Alabama all in a row. Boy, it could get ugly in College Station.
Listen, it really could. Now, again, Jimbo's not going to be fired. He's got about an $80 million buyout, so no one's doing that. But this team could be another very disappointing year. I mean, look, Shane, this App State, that was no fluke, was it? App State dominated them. And listen, people haven't heard this. App State had 82 plays. A&M had 38. Shane, have you heard of that in years?
No, that's just total domination is what that is.
Shane, how do you have 38 plays in a game? My stars, people have 38 plays sometimes and a half. But A&M right now last in the SEC in scoring, total offense, rushing offense. Now, I do wonder if they'll play more Max Johnson if Haynes King struggles. Fisher said we're repping both of them in practice. Is basically all he said. But look, for the quarterbacks, I can tell you right now, the better quarterback on the field right now is Tyler Van Dyke for that game. Shane, my question is, and I know we're short on time here, I won't go into a lot of detail, but I still wonder. I said this in the preseason, and I'm still wondering it today. Can Miami block A&M? Do they have the line of scrimmage that they can deal with that A&M defensive line? To me, that's going to be the key to the game. But I can tell you this, what an incredibly important win for Miami if they could get this. Even if A&M's not playing well, it's still tough to go in. Look, let's be honest. Miami's not going to very many football games and having the atmosphere and the crowd that they're going to get Saturday night at 9 o'clock.
No, it should be a good one. There's no question about it. Brent, we appreciate your time. We'll talk about the Heisman Trophy next week, where you're leaning right now early in the season. But have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next Thursday, buddy.
We look forward to the game Saturday. Thank you, Shane.
Yeah, that's Brent Beird. Join us on the Titan MR Hotline. Going to take a quick time out. Come back. We'll be joined by Mike Ridought talking a little high school football. You're watching and listening. Pot up Matthews in the morning.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogra State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wiebe Realtor Caldwell Banker MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration points where the Gators go to celebrate with premium brands like Escape Apology, F45 Training, Regal Cinemas, Dave & Buster's, Nike, Prime and Pearl, and the HBC's restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, not the growl, now selling Head Beer Coach American Lager in 16-ounce cans, where you can get it at Spurrier's, Visors, and Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. We'll see you at Celebration Point, where the Gators go to celebrate. Head to the Titan MR Hotline now. We're going to be joined by Mike Ridought from the PrepZone.com and Main Street Daily News. Does a tremendous job covering the youngsters. How we doing, Mike?
Good, man. I think you might be on to something. Maybe they should change it from grill to growl. I like that.
The Spurrier's Gridiron Growl. The Gator Growl. Do they still have Gator Growl for homecoming?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure it's as good as it used to be, but they still have it, as far as I know.
Yeah. All right, Mike. Well, you're a weatherman as well. Not only do you cover high school sports, but you tell us if it's going to pour down rain and can't get games canceled. Boy, have you ever seen anything like what's going on Friday nights in this area?
I have not. In fact, I asked Mark Whittemore, the head coach for Buchholz, if he had seen the field in as bad a condition as it was, during the season opener for them. And he said he's never seen it worse. He's seen it as bad before, but I walked on that field. I mean, your shoe sinks into that. I mean, it's just like a sponge. So it's not just the weather, but it's also what it does to the field there at Citizens Field. And it's been a mess. We've already had 2 of our Friday games. Gainesville and Ocala Vanguard was moved from Friday to Saturday. In fact, Gainesville lost a home game out of it. It was a home game originally, and then they ended up playing down at Booster Stadium on a Saturday morning. And then our last game last week, Buchholz and Eastside, same thing. Well, not same thing. This ended up being a no contest, but a game that we got through maybe almost all of the first quarter, and then that was it. No contest for Buchholz and Eastside. So, I've never seen – you just don't know. It's hard to predict. I try not to worry about the weather since I have no control of the weather, but there's no question it's affecting a lot of games in the area.
Well, hopefully if any of the people higher up in the city of Gainesville or that they spend money on so much dumb stuff in this county that they will put some, as much as I hate turf fields, if anybody in America needs a turf field, it's Citizens Field because 3 high schools play on it. So instead of doing all this silly stuff they do around town, they should invest something into the athletics because they also play lacrosse out there. They play soccer. It only makes sense.
Yeah. And I was talking with a former athletic director last night. Even if you can't spend the money, and I know it costs a lot of money for that turf field, but even if you can't spend the money to get a turf field, how about some type of a tarp? So that way they can protect the field while it's raining. Because I know that, Clint's done a great job of rolling the field. He's rolled it a couple of times. It's just once that rain starts hitting it, it's tough. It's already been beaten up, for a couple of weeks now. Well,
as much silliness that they do in this county, as I said, they should invest in that. Okay. We got a question here on Facebook Live brought to you by Mellon Law. Andy asked, Mike, can Buchholz go undefeated in its district? Will Bartram Trail be its toughest opponent? They got a pretty tough opponent this Friday night. I think they got better athletes, but Creekside's pretty good.
I think they could go undefeated. I actually wrote an article about this, Shane, this week about this district. You might call it the district of death, really, because Buchholz is in Class 4A District 3, where the 5 teams in the district are combined 13-1. 4 of them are ranked top 10 in the state. Bartram Trail is 3-0. They're ranked 5th in 4S. Fleming Island out of Orange Park, they're 3-0. They're ranked 9th in the state. Creekside, who Buchholz plays on Friday night, they're also ranked top 10 in the state as well. Man, it's a tough district. So I'd like to think that Buchholz can go undefeated, but again, you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, are there going to be injuries? Those types of things. I think that Buchholz can go undefeated. I've seen Buchholz play, and, they're legit this year. Not only their offense with Creed Whittemore back and Jakari Kelly at wide receiver and Jaron Hamilton at wide receiver, pretty good running back also in Quentin Cutler. But that defense has been really good, too. You got Gavin Hill, who's a UF commit, Kendall Jackson, who does have an offer from Florida. But Thomas Weinhardt really has been the surprise. He leads the team with 19 tackles, 3 sacks. They definitely have the pieces. Got a good kicker, too, and Reed Russo. So I think Buchholz could go undefeated. But as I noted, it's just a really tough district. And district play does begin this week.
Yeah, I think they do go undefeated. I agree that's a tough district. But Buchholz has different type of athletes than those other places.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yes. All right, Mike, what other teams have surprised you up to this point in the area?
As far as a surprise, I think there was a question about Williston. They only won 1 game last year, but they had Robbie Pruitt coming in as a head coach, and he won 3 straight state championships at Union County. So you knew he was a good coach. He also was successful in Georgia, but because they didn't have a weight program. That was the first thing that he put in as soon as he was hired as the head coach. And it's not necessarily been a surprise from the standpoint of their offense because they got Shuby Coleman, who quarterback, transferred from Gainesville High School. Kyrie Edwards, the running back from Gainesville, transferred to Williston. So I felt like the offense might get off to a good start. But Shane, they pitched 2 shutouts in 2 games. They're 2-0. They've got a game this week at Brantford, which is 3-0. So I would have to definitely say they're one of the surprises. And you might even say Eastside too. I mean, Eastside's off to a 2-0 start. It's the first time since 2009 that the Rams have gone undefeated in their first 2 games. Gator Hoskins has this program heading in the right direction. Their quarterback, Holden Johnson, has thrown 7 touchdown passes in 2 games. So there's a couple of surprises in the area. I'd probably say Eastside, Williston, 2 of the biggest surprises right now. I thought Chiefland would be as good as advertised. They had a nice win at Live Oak Swanee, so they're 3-0. Some of the other undefeated teams that are in our coverage area at Main Street Daily News, Brantford, which I mentioned was undefeated, they're 3-0. Newberry's another one, Shane, that you might say has been somewhat of a surprise. Just the way that they got that offense going. I mean, they just beat Trenton 65-6. Now Trenton is pretty bad this year. They haven't won a game yet, but Newberry only had 1 second half possession and still won that game 65-6. Their freshman quarterback, Kyle McGriff, 6 of 10, 4 touchdown passes, just 1 half of action. Mike Moore had another big game receiving. I don't think it's a surprise that Hawthorne's 2-0, Oak Hall's 2-0. Maybe a surprise in the other direction is that Lake City Columbia finally got their first win. They've got a losing record right now. So it's still kind of early in the year, and with all the rain, it's still kind of early to tell at this point, but those are some of the surprises to me.
John asked on here, Mike, do you think Hawthorne or Union County can compete with Madison County in 1R? Each week I see Madison beating these bigger schools. I will say this, as you say, Union County I think they played I don't know where they played, but they beat Columbia 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So the 1A schools to me that are clearly the best ones, I've seen Newberry play. Once they play the Willistons, the Hawthorns, the Chieflands, and the Union Counties, it will catch up with them because they're very young. But those 4 teams I just mentioned right there are very good programs for 1R, not 1A, whatever the hell, 1R, I guess.
1R, yes. And Price Harris, who came over from Dunellen as the head coach there at Madison County, they just lost their first game, but they lost in Georgia to Fitzgerald. So, they've beaten Tampa Carrollwood Day, who Trinity Catholic plays on Friday. They've beaten Tallahassee Godby, beat them pretty handily. Now, they've got Columbia this week, so should be a good test for the Tigers and for Madison County. That game will be in Lake City. Madison County won that game last year in Madison County, but you're right. When Newberry plays, the Willistons and the Union Counties, and I will broadcast Newberry at Williston in a couple of weeks. So we'll find out, as I like to say, separating the pretenders from the contenders. But Madison County right now ranked number 1 in the state in that 1R because they're the defending champions. Obviously they're still the team to beat, but Hawthorne, I still think has a good chance. They're loaded with Division I talent. I think they've got a chance to. Here's the interesting thing about Hawthorne, Shane. I don't know if you heard this or not, but Hawthorne was supposed to host Newberry tomorrow. That game has been canceled because they overbooked. I don't know who dropped the ball on that, but instead Hawthorne is going to go to Orlando Christian Prep. They lose a whole game, $10,000 to $12,000 gate possibly for that game against Newberry, because I know Newberry would have traveled well. Big mistake there for Hawthorne, but I still think Hawthorne will be the team to beat in this area in Class 1R.
Do you think whoever that team is they're playing in Orlando, are they a good program where it's going to help their rankings? Do you think that had anything to do with it? Because look, it wouldn't have been a good game against Newberry this year.
Yeah, right. It would have been a good measuring stick for Newberry. I think Hawthorne would have beaten Newberry anyway. The game was going to be played in Hawthorne. Hawthorne's just loaded. They're really good this year. They're off to a 2-0 start. And the teams that they've beaten have been on the road. They beat Middleburg on the road. They beat Terry Parker in Jacksonville. This Orlando Christian Prep team is 1-2. I don't know the circumstances, what happened, and why that game was, overbooked, or why OCP was chosen over Newberry. But with North Marion on the schedule, with a trip to Union County in October, Hawthorne's still going to get tested by some good teams. But again, those are the types of games that will help you get ready for a postseason run.
Hey, Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Mike Ridought from the prepzone.com and Main Street Daily News. All right, so anybody been disappointed or you've been surprised that they're struggling?
Like I said, Columbia off to a slow start, but, again, Columbia did open the season against a good Buchholz team. So we knew that was a potential loss there for Columbia. They did right the ship and finally got their first win of the season last week. So it's a big one against Madison County. But, I really thought coming into the season, this Columbia team had a chance to have a pretty good year. And right now they've got a losing record. But the win against DeLand, was a nice win for them. This will be a good measuring stick for them, too, against Madison County. They've got them at home. They played against Union County on the road. You mentioned Union County. They lost a close one there. They had a lead, I believe, in the second half of that game, but Union County ended up coming back to win that game. So that was a tough loss because that's obviously a small classification. They've got another test, Shane, coming up. Next Friday. They go to Trinity Christian in Jacksonville. So that's a loss in my opinion. But then they've got some games I feel like they will end up winning. I still think that Columbia has a chance to be successful in their district and, win their district, but and make the playoffs. But to me, that's, I guess, one of the disappointments so far.
Before we get you out of here, Mike, John has a question brought to you by Meldon Law. Mike, what happened between North Marion and Bellevue last week at the end of the game?
All I know is there was some kind of a fight at the end of the game, and it was late in the game. I don't know if there were any suspensions from it, but honestly, all I saw was about a 30-second clip and a little scuffle going on. That's all I know. I haven't had a chance to reach out to John Patton or the Star Banner about that, so I'm not exactly sure what happened, what caused that.
Yeah, John says, I played at Citizens Field 35 years ago, and it was a sack of crap back then. Too bad they cannot build on-campus stadiums in Gainesville. That's true. There's no land to build on. There's nothing wrong with the Citizens Field, the actual field, until it pours down rain 4 straight days. And you have 3 high schools playing there. The field's always in great shape. My point is, if you're going to have 3 schools playing there, not only just football, but lacrosse and soccer, the damn city needs to do something about it. It's that simple.
Yeah,
it's a simple.
And not
simple
only
fix.
that, but then also you got, I guess, the Pop Warner games on Saturdays too. So that field's getting used multiple times. Yesterday, Shane, I don't know that this is going to come to fruition, but yesterday I got a text stating that the game tonight between Gainesville and Clay could get moved to Gainesville High School. Well, there's hardly any parking over there. It's a horrible field to play a varsity football game on. It's
horrible to field to practice on, much less play a game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then Eastside was talking about moving their game against Bradford on Friday to Eastside High School. And their field probably may be a little bit better, but it's homecoming for Eastside. You can't play your homecoming game over at Eastside High School. So right now the sun is out. Like I said, I don't try to worry about the weather. I don't think that the games will get moved, but it has been in discussion about moving the games for tonight and tomorrow. So we'll see.
All right. Before we let you go, let everybody know how they can listen to the games, what broadcast you got going on this week.
All right. I appreciate it, Shane. Actually, Marty Palman will be on the call tonight. Play at Gainesville. That's a 7:00 game, 6:45 pregame. We are streaming video, Shane, of all the city games. Gainesville, or not the big city games, Gainesville, Buchholz, and Eastside. All home games at Citizens Field are being streamed on the Prep Zone YouTube channel. So make sure you go to our YouTube page and you subscribe. You'll get a notification when we go live. But we're streaming video via YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitter, and Twitch. That's for the Clay Gainesville game, as well as the Bradford Eastside game. I'll be on the call, Bradford Eastside. That game will also be available on 106.9 FM I Am Country. We'll also have audio at MainStreetDailyNews.com for North Marion and Santa Fe. That's another big district game. Santa Fe is looking for their first win of the year. North Marion is undefeated. We'll have audio at MainStreetDailyNews.com for that one.
Good stuff as always, my man. We'll talk to you later on in the year, Mike. Appreciate it.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Shane. Have a great day.
That's Mike Ridought. Join us on the Titan Moore hotline. John says it's the same way at Gene Cox and Tommy Oliver stadiums. I think he's talking about in Tallahassee, but those have field turf. Gainesville's Citizens Field, where 3 teams play, natural grass. It's a disaster right now. As much as I hate turf, they need it out there very badly. Ruse Ogre State Farm Office is a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ogreinsurance.com. Give them a call, 352-240-1779. Hope you enjoyed today's program. Tomorrow, JC and I will have our Peachland Dental weekend picks. We'll have a guest talking the USF Bulls. Have a great day, folks, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.